We already did a tier list on the best and worst rappers in the game, but today we'll be going into their discographies. We brought 40 different catalogs, and we'll be deciding if they're perfect, amazing, great, good, mid, or bad. Let's get right into it, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. First up, Kanye West.
Oh, one of the most.
He's got to go perfect.
Yeah, he has
right
to
off
go
the
perfect.
bat, bro. I mean,
what's there to conversate about? You know,
he's dropped classic after classic, and up to 2018, you could have argued that any of his albums were his best fucking album, and nobody would have given you an awkward eye for that.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
And I also think there's so many little iconic runs within his discography as well, looking at the evolution of the college dropout all the way up to graduation, even looking at something like 808s and Heartbreak and how that was so influential moving past it, the grandness and how iconic MBDTF was, even the run that he had with, The Life of Pablo, and then in Ye, like that era of Kanye was super cool. So
and Don the Two will pretend that never existed, bro. Because it never officially came out.
It never officially dropped,
right?
So Kanye goes perfect. But let's go on to Drake, because a lot of people have different conversations with Drake's discography. I genuinely don't think that Drake's ever dropped a bad album. Everything has quality in it. And I mean, even at that, looking at, Nothing Was the Same, Take Care, and if you're reading this, It's Too Late, that puts you in a special place as far as catalogs go, at least in my
I think
books.
It's a great catalog. I think that he's kind of dipped a bit towards the latter end of his career in terms of like Scorpion and onwards. I feel like
I find Scorpion
he admitted
underrated,
himself
though,
that he stopped, going for that conscious concept record and kind of went more into this lane where he's making these albums that are super lengthy, are kind of more pop oriented, and there's still quality within those track lists, but it's not one of the best catalogs of all time. I think it's great.
I think it's a great catalog, absolutely. But let's go on to Eminem, another polarizing catalog, because a lot of people say that if he would have probably end up retiring at Recovery, or even the Bad Meets Evil album, that he would have a unanimous one of the best catalogs within the whole genre. But it's when you start getting into the Marshall Mathers LP2, Revival, Music to Be Murdered By, that there's a special taint now.
Marshall Mathers LP2 isn't that bad.
But I still don't think it's nowhere near up to quality with the rest of his projects. Absolutely. There's a definite decline within Eminem's discography starting there, but the thing is that, bro, the guy has, in my opinion, the best 3-album run of all time with the Some Shady LP, Marshall Mathers LP, and then after that getting into the Eminem show.
You got the three-peat, bro.
Not only that, but even looking at something like Relapse, like I could take Relapse and I could put it into my top 3 Eminem albums of all time. The production is fantastic. His rapping ability is fantastic. Coming back from that hiatus and living up to the pressure.
Yeah, but we also have the disaster that was Revival. You have Music to Be Murdered By, which wasn't that great, even though his fan base adores it for some reason. Encore. Not really that great of an album either.
No, I'm gonna disagree with you on the encore take, man. Like, example, like songs like Yellow Brick Road, or even like, let's say, Evil Deeds. Like, there's Rain Man in there. Like, there's so many iconic Eminem tracks.
And here's the thing about this tier list: just because, let's say, 2 catalogs fall into the same bracket of, let's say, great, it doesn't mean that they're on the same level. Like, for example, I want to put Eminem's catalog in great, but it's above Drake's.
Oh, absolutely.
You agree with that?
Yeah, I do agree with that take. And listen, the guy has the best 3-album run of all time, in my opinion. So let's go on to the next one. By the way, Eminem in great. 50 Cent. Another catalog which I wish was maybe a bit more developed. I think that, like, once you got Get Rich or Die Trying in the Massacre, like, what really comes after that, like, a lot of people fuck with Curtis. I think it's a good listen. I mean, Animal Ambition really just came and went. I mean, no one really listens to it.
I think what matters more is what came before, when you have the Guess Who's Back mixtape, or you even 50 Cent is the Future with G-Unit. That was fire as well. You're getting songs like Ghetto Quaron on there, which are some of 50's best. But I mean, listen, I don't want to sound like an asshole, but, like, just give me Get Rich or Die Trying and I'm cool. You know what I mean?
No,
like,
listen, I have a lot of listening.
I'm over-exaggerating, but I'm just saying, like, he's always kind of been chasing that high that was Get Rich or Die Trying, and never really kind of lived up to that.
But I mean, like, I don't necessarily look at it like that just because The Massacre is such a strong album for me. Like, I really like it. Maybe it's a personal bias, but I think there's so many good tracks in that one. So, all right, I think I would go good with 50 Cent.
I think it's a good catalog.
I think it's a good catalog. But let's go on to Migos, all right, because they have a lengthy catalog, and you could argue that, like, that YRN run, Culture, when that dropped, was super iconic for the Atlanta scene, and, like, they had everyone on blast. I also think that the way that they were able to market their catalog going forward, and how, like, they made Atlanta trap so accessible to a mainstream audience, was genius as well. I really enjoyed that. But I again, what you had said about 50 Cent trying to chase that Get Rich or Die Trying, I feel like they always tried to recapture that hype that was Culture, and was never really able to achieve it after that album.
They have fire mixtapes. They have No Label 2. They have the YRN mixtape from 2013 that was also really good. And I feel like they've been super influential in their catalog. If you're talking about their triplet flow, if you're talking about the trap anthems that they've created, if you're looking at the energetic ad-libs. I feel like Amigos' album is always entertaining because you're kind of seeing how they all mesh together as a trio.
My
You're
only
getting to
issue
see
though is
their
the
anecdotes.
two recent runs though. Like you could also like kind of argue that like they didn't roll out their catalog as best as they possibly can, because like Culture 2 came and it absolutely went. I mean, it really doesn't sound like anything too great at this point, just because it felt kind of rushed and it didn't feel too great. And then Culture 3 only comes out like what, maybe 3 years later, and then you're like, okay, where is the hype
Super
for the Culture?
forgettable.
Absolutely, and where's the hype for the Culture series? And I kind of feel like it's a good direction for them to
And
all
this
go
is
in their own
interesting
directions,
because
you
their
know?
catalog is kind of complete now.
It
It
is.
seems like they've parted ways.
But I will say, I do
So,
think it's a good catalog.
I think it's good.
I think there's a lot of value you could get out of the Migos' catalog. But let's go on to Outkast's. And I genuinely do think that Outkast's catalog is top 5 of all time for me, solidified. Like if we were to have the conversation, top 5 discographies of all time, Outkast would be in that convo. I mean, it depends where you want to start. Do you want to go AT Aliens? You want to go Aquemini? You want to go on a fantastic double-sided album with a speaker box Love Below? Do you want, do you want something like, let's say, Stankonia that's completely different than anything they've done before, but that still holds that quirkiness and that beautiful southern sound? So there's really no flaws within
They're
the
the most
discography.
creative rap duo of all time, and they never overstayed their welcome. They gave us 6 albums, all fucking great records. And what I love too is that they went super mainstream while sticking to their roots in terms of having that conscious subject matter, in terms of incorporating jazz, rock, soul, and funk. Like hip hop's always been a genre that lends and borrows, and the way they fuse so many genres together throughout their catalog has been amazing. I mean, look at the soulful live instruments of southernistic playlist music. Look at I mispronounced that. Southern playlistic Cadillac music. If you're looking at also the super spacey sounds of AT Aliens, if you're looking at Aquemini, what they were able to do with the funk incorporation there, every album they leveled it up and they brought something new to the table. If you're looking at their erratic flows, their song concepts, everything is genius.
Absolutely. And you also know what was super cool is that I find like Big Boy and Andre 3K's chemistry never got stale, especially after they ended up developing the catalog. Like there's certain duos or groups that can't carry a full catalog like that, but they were always able to maintain it, and their timing was perfect. They knew when they had to leave, and look, now it's one of the most respected in hip hop. So I think Outkast's catalog is absolutely perfect.
100%.
But let's go on to Kendrick Lamar, right? Because do you think that this is the best catalog that we have from modern day rap? Or do you think that now, like, if we've got to Mr. Around the Big Steppers, we kind of understand what's going with the album, we could start putting this catalog in the all-time lists?
His run has been nothing short of miraculous, bro. I mean, this guy is dropping amazing concept and narrative-based concept record after concept record. And, I mean, some of the most universal messages and important messages in hip-hop history. I mean, this guy is just a master of linguistics, poetry. Everything he forms his albums with, there's always purpose, there's always intent. And I think that it's amazing that his catalog is so revered. After only a decade, bro. It's already considered one of the best of all time.
Yeah, and you have to really understand like how important his catalog is to new generation music. I mean, just as a whole, like still bringing in those universal messages in music as like, music continues to get more mainstream, and you see a lot of these pop acts like trying to dumb down their lyrics, or let's say use production styles that are like more suited towards a mainstream audience. Kendrick is able to achieve that while also sticking to his formula, and I think that's why I find there's so many parallels between Kendrick and Outkast's catalog.
Does it go amazing or perfect,
absolutely
though?
No, it's perfect.
I
would
agree
put
with that.
perfect rating. He never dropped a bad album.
Never.
He never dropped anything besides a great album, realistically. I mean, that's at least in my
3
opinion.
back-to-back classics for me.
Absolutely.
The Good Kid, Mad City, to a Butterfly Dam Run, untouchable.
And not only that, but if you look at every single year he dropped, he has album of the year or it's in contention for album of the year. So what are you going to really,
perfect
critique
catalog
with it?
for Kendrick. Let's now go on to Jack Harlow, who doesn't have a great catalog, but I don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be.
No, of course
6
it's not.
mixtapes, 2 albums. Come Home, The Kids Miss You was pretty bad. His debut album, though, that's what they all say, was actually pretty fire. I mean, there's songs like Route 66, there's Rendezvous, like there's a lot of actually quality tracks.
21C Delta, Way Out with Big Sean was good. Like, Funny Seeing You Here is fantastic too. Like, I think that the thing with Jack Harlow is obviously his music's not going to speak to like a diehard hip hop fans like ear, like it's never going to be like that, but there's still quality within
but
it.
A lot
I just
of his
think
mixtapes are painfully boring, bro. I'm not going to lie.
But I mean, those runs in his mixtapes was more for development of his sound over the years, so I don't really want to stick it to him, but I do think it's a mid-catalog.
I think it's a mid-catalog.
Okay, let's go on to the next one. We got J. Cole in the house, and he has a crazy studio album catalog and a mixtape run. I mean, you could talk about this one being, the next best, closest to Kendrick Lamar's, at least for the 2010 decade. I mean, taking that commercial factor and still mixing in with quality is always prominent within his thing. And what's interesting about J. Cole's catalog is that he's going on a run now. Like, it's getting like he's aging, but it seems like the catalog is getting more and more developed, and you could see how he might be dropping some of the best material of his whole career later on into the discography.
And I love the duality of Cole's catalog too, because you can get those projects like the warm-up or the off-season where he's just shooting in the gym. He's sparring off lyrically, and it's kind of a loose feeling.
Yeah.
But then you get the concept records like KOD or For Your Eyes Only that blow your fucking mind.
Yeah,
so,
or you get a super accessible album that has aged fantastic over the years, like 2014, where you have some of the most iconic songs within his whole track list and of that decade. Amazing catalog for J. Cole, absolutely. But let's go on to Biggie. I think that he has one of the most slept-on catalogs within all of music, just because it obviously got cut off short. But, I mean, having Ready to Die in Life After That, those are two perfect albums. Those are two 10 on 10 solidified albums. And after that, I mean, what else do you really like? Born Again is a good listen, but I mean, regardless,
are we really gonna count the posthumous stuff here?
But that's the thing, is that I don't want to bring into this conversation, and I really want to concentrate on Ready to Die in Life After That. So I think it's a perfect discography.
And I think that's the one knock that people have when it comes to Biggie is, he doesn't have that lengthy of a catalog. Fuck all that, bro. When you're looking at the magnitude of Life After Death and Ready to Die, rappers wish and fucking pray that they could ever put out two projects back to back on that level.
Not only
when
that,
it did for gangster rap,
bro.
for mafioso rap, the cinematic qualities, all the skits, all the way that he's putting in this character arc development throughout these projects, like. Biggie is he's an icon. He's a king of New York for a fucking reason. And he did everything that he did within a 2-album run.
Yeah, within 2 studio albums.
Insane.
That just tells you how it's perfect, for sure. And that just tells you like how impactful the music was and how well distributed it is. Like, you're never going to find filler within, Biggie's catalog. And he's still like, you talk about sticking to your craft, but again, like back in the 90s, like he was going mainstream with his music while being able to mesh in these beautiful concept records. So yeah, Biggie goes into the perfect category.
Let's now go into Logic, who has to me the most inconsistent catalog I've ever listened to. Because you'll go from one album being like, holy shit, this is fucking amazing, to what the fuck was that?
Yeah, like I think that's why I fuck with Logic's catalog so heavy, because there's so much replay value in it. But then like you'll get surprises like Bobby Tarantino 3, or like even Everybody, that was kind of disappointing.
Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, or Supermarket.
Well, the supermarket one, like I don't want to really have that in this conversation just because it's kind of a different feel. But I mean, what's so sick about Logic's catalog is that mixtape run, one of the best of all time in my opinion. Under Pressure, No Pressure, The Incredible True Story, Vinyl Days is a fantastic fucking listen. Like, he has so much quality within it. It's just like those duds that really like make you be like,
yeah. And I think that like. A lot of people compare his catalog to, let's say, Tarantino's catalog, in the sense that he's constantly paying homage to other artists in terms of borrowing flows, which he does in good taste. But that's what I'm saying. A lot of the motifs in his albums, like even having Talia, the female like computer that's guiding the Aquarius 3 ship, that's taken from A Tribe Called Quest, Midnight Marauders. So,
but I find that was done well though, because it kind of gives you that experience in modern time, and I've always really enjoyed that. It's
cool, but it knocks down the originality of the catalog a little bit.
You see, but I think it's also different though in the way that he did it, just because he brought that. Okay, let's say you're a Logic fan and you've never gone through a Tribe's, like let's say Discography. He's gonna bring it to you at your ears and your front, and yes, it's been done before, but just in a super unique and original way that suits his.
Like I said,
catalog,
it's always been in good taste. It's always been in good taste, but overall, I think Logic's catalog super inconsistent. I
want to go good.
Bro.
No. I think it's a
good. We'll go good
because
you have Vinyl Days, Under Pressure, No Pressure, The Incredible True Story. You have
mixtape
fantastic
projects. You have all kinds of great stuff.
Good is fair.
Like people talk about Logic's discography and completely discredit it, but there's so much quality within it. But let's go into Lil Yachty, okay? Because what's interesting about Yachty is that out of that 2016 freshman list, he's low key had some of the best consistency as far as staying relevant within the game, bro. This guy has
relevant, sure, but that whole fucking freshman list is relevant. But 2016 was a special year for the
have you ever seen this guy perform live, dude? He has diehard fans that come into his music.
We always have the same conversation when it comes to Yachty. Yes, he's relevant. Yes, he has his fan base. The catalog's no good.
The catalog isn't good. But I'm saying is that I understand and I appreciate why people are still gravitating towards his music in 2022, and it's quite impressive to see over the years because he has had longevity. People are there for his drops and they fuck with it. It's just like, it's not my cup of tea.
There's just too much filler in the track list, and like none of his projects, all the little boat series,
there's quality.
Teenage Emotions.
I didn't fuck with Teenage Emotions.
I'll pluck out a song or two, but I mean, I just feel like
he's not like a
he
studio
makes
album,
like bubblegum trap, lullaby trap type of style,
but
and
it works
aesthetic,
for people.
But his singing too is not good.
I know,
he tries
I know,
to
I know.
implement it, I just feel like the track lists are just always jammed with filler and a lot of bad songs.
Yeah, but you'll always find those Lil Yachty
I
haters that
think
end
he
up
has a
making-
bad catalog.
I do think he has a bad catalog, but that's just because of my bias. I mean, like,
I don't think it's biased, bro.
I think it is. Well,
I mean,
it's all
it's
subjective.
subjectivity, but at the end of the day, I think a lot of people
It's
would
not
be
like
in agreement
because we
that
have
it's
some
not a good
guys. We
catalog.
have some guys on this list that like it's objectively like a bad catalog, you know, and like no one really fucks with it like that. But Yachty,
Well,
there's a
everybody
whole-
has fans,
I-
bro.
I-
You know what I mean?
But like, there's people that genuinely get invested into
Yeah.
Yachty's music because of the energy that comes out throughout it. So it's a bad catalog in my books, but people fuck with it. Let's go on to Travis Scott, okay? Because when we talk about new generation rappers, the fate of the trap scene, whatever you guys want to call it, this guy has been carrying this genre, like as far as like that end, for such a long time with these projects because of how original the concepts are behind his albums and how unique the soundscapes are. And I think that originality factor and constantly like being in the motion of a Travis Scott album has gained so much value for me as a music listener. And I think that once Travis is done, yes, you'll be able to put this discography with Future if you already can, with Young Thug. Like, he will be up there as far as like what he could carry with. And I think it's as good as Drake's catalog. I'm being honest with you at this point.
I think you could argue that it's better, bro. I think you could argue that it's more consistent. I think that his production is always next level. He's had some of the best produced rap albums in the 2010s, and I love the way that his sonic soundscapes always transports you into a new place, and the world building with his albums are phenomenal.
I will say this: I say out of the new generation, and like also you could also talk about all time. He has like his ear for production and like his beat choices are above anyone, bro. Like there's very few people that are able to be in that conversation.
He just carved his own unique like psychedelic trap sound that has been very influential and has stand on its own in terms of being distinct as a sound. And I think I could go amazing with this one.
I could go. Listen, I could go amazing with it. My only thing is like
we're going to be saying that Travis is a better discography than Eminem and Drake.
But that's what I'm saying.
That's what's on the line right now.
But that's what I'm saying is that like he needs time to be able to develop it and flesh it out. Like I still feel like there's so much room to grow with it. So that's why I want to put it in great. It's because like Eminem and Drake, how long have they been active for?
True.
Right. So as
they've had time to slip up, Travis maybe hasn't.
But that's what I'm saying though is that like even Utopia coming through, there's a lot of pressure on the line. So
great is fair.
Great is fair with Travis Scott. But let's go on to Tupac. Okay, so he has so much music released, especially that he had passed away so young, and I think that's what's so impressive about his catalog is you have a catalog there's no filler in. He's one of the best writers of all time. He shaped that West Coast sound with the likes of Death Row, and even before he was even involved with that, had some of the most moving and touching music that you could possibly have, come out of this genre, and it still sounds so great for me. I don't want to include any fucking posthumous album because the way that they took care of that really wasn't really good. So
that's not even his music.
Absolutely.
Anymore,
and he has, again, one of the best 3 album runs of all fucking time. So, my opinion.
And I think that, his catalog cemented because we got to hear, Tupac's albums at different stages in his life. You kind of got to grow with him as the music started coming out. And I love the fact that there's so much range within the catalog. If you're looking at Tupacalypse now and Strictly For My, it was more focused around the plight of the black community. Then you go into a project like Me Against the World, it's him looking more inwards and being introspective. Then you go to All Eyes on Me, more showcase of his hunger and his aggression. And I love the duality of Tupac's catalog just because he's loud but he's sensitive. He's confrontational, but he's also empathetic.
Yeah, you can add that. Like the 7 Day Theory was such
a
great fucking it's a
to.
great concept album as well.
That's like, ruthless, bro,
but that's
project.
what I'm saying though is that like he has everything for everyone, and there's never filler on a track list. I've never listened to a bad Tupac Shakur song, so I want to take Tupac. I want to put it in perfect.
Perfect as well,
absolutely
bro.
Perfect catalog. But let's go on to Tyler the Creator. Such an interesting catalog to talk about. And we did our discography ranking. If you guys want to go check it out, but what's interesting about Tyler's catalog is the evolution within it, and as Tyler continues to release music, he starts to tap into certain sonic palettes. He starts to try out different performances,
different characters he brings in,
new concepts to songs while still recycling, let's say old concepts that his fans fuck with, but he puts it into a new direction that sounds so refreshing. And even looking at again another album run, like these album runs are so important to a discography ranking. Looking at that Flower Boy, Igor, and Call Me If You Get Lost. dude, that could be a whole catalog on its own.
Yeah,
it's just
the idea that he went from horrorcore music to genre-bending albums and ends up winning a fucking Grammy for an album that's not even a rap album. Like
that's fire
such
too.
a huge fucking flex, bro. I think Tyler's catalog is amazing because the earlier projects, he was still developing a sound, he was still finding himself.
But there's still a lot of quality within them. Like the
Goblin's all right.
But I still like it because of the
right.
storytelling and the way that he also meshed through together his catalog at an early
You agree
stage.
with amazing, or would you put it great?
I want to go more towards
I feel
great.
like great makes
I
more
feel
sense.
more
Now that I
towards
think
great
about it,
because
because Bastard and Goblin kind of they bring it down.
They bring it down, but they're not bad albums. Like people say that Goblin's a bad listen. I don't think so. I still go back to Goblin all kinds, and even at that, I find he has low key listens, like let's say Wolf or Cherry Bomb, that are in there that sounds so good, even to this day in 2022. So Tyler goes into great. I think that's a good decision. But let's go on to Jay-Z because he has so much music released, and I think that you can have the conversation that he has some of the most classics of all time. Like there's very few people with a stacked catalog like that, and he obviously took a hiatus, and he took time off,
hiatuses,
and he took time off throughout his career, and it allowed him to develop new material and new concepts.
He deserved that because he went on a run from 96 to 2003, dropping every single fucking year. He was giving you quality and quantity at the same time, putting out classic albums like Reasonable Doubt, putting out the Black Album, putting out the Blueprint, the Volume series. I mean, this guy was just always on top of the game, always giving you different sides of himself, and it's amazing that we're getting his most mature and arguably well-written album in 2017 with 444. Like the longevity of the catalog is something to appreciate too.
Yeah, and I think that you're probably gonna like because I like American Gangster, and like a lot of people find it a weak listen. I don't think so. I think where Kingdom Come, the Blueprint too, even that's a good listen. Like there's really nothing. It's a pretty good listen. I mean, even the Magna Carta album was really solid.
Blueprint 3 also decent.
So yes, you could say that he kind of like had a dip down maybe like after the Black Album, but
he's got mad classics though. So like I'm struggling between perfect and amazing right now.
I think it's amazing. I think it's that good. Like I don't think it touched like Outkast maybe, but like he has too many classics to put it next to like Eminem.
But I think he has arguably more classics than some people that we have in the perfect.
That's true. That is true. Okay, but it's still not perfect though. Like it's still not something where you could say it's a flawless catalog. Like there's duds in there, you know.
Okay.
I would put Jay-Z in amazing, but let's go on to Future because he has released so much music, and like people don't know this, but like Future was doing real hip hop before he was actually doing trap. Like he came up through the Atlanta scene like in that early 2000s decade, and then like only really started popping off in the 2010s. And there's so many albums you could go through. I mean, you want to talk about DS2, even like the run he had in 2017 with Future and Hendrix, that was super fire. The follow-up in 2016 with Evil was a great listen as well, and there's always quality to take out of a Future album. And now what's nice about Future is like he's just releasing music to get bangers out there. Like he has his catalog established, and I think it's easily one of the strongest within this trap.
And I like the fact there's also albums like Hendrix where he's kind of leaning more towards pop and R&B, getting out of his comfort zone. But I mean, Future is just the king of misogyny, the king of toxicity, the king of fucking lean, the king of all these things that have all become synonymous with his albums. Yeah. And it's cool to see that these reoccurring ideas within all of his projects. And I mean, yes, there's some projects that aren't as strong, like I Never Liked You, in my opinion. High Off Life, not the best project either. But his mixtape run is pretty fucking cemented. I love albums like DS2.
Yeah, and even talking about what he did in 2015 with like, even looking at 56 Nights and DS2, like those are classics within the trap genre and within everything. Like he arguably has some of the best runs within the whole hip hop decade of 2010.
And even his beat selection. I mean, when you're looking at him tapping DJ Esco, tapping Metro Boomin, these dark beats that just put you in like a comatose type of feeling. It's just
like even but that's insane. What I'm saying too is that like think about what Future's catalog did for so many ATL producers. I mean, looking at let's say Metro Boomin, Metro came up through that like Atlanta trap scene because he was obviously working with different people before that, but I feel like the peak of his production was within these Future albums. So you're also getting some of the best production of the decade within that genre. Listen, I think it's a great catalog, bro. I'm not gonna put it any less than that. But let's keep going on with this. Big Sean gets a lot of stick, but he still has great albums within his catalog for sure. Dark Side Paradise is a fantastic listen in my opinion. How about you? What did you say?
I mean, I Decided is really solid. Detroit 2, the original Detroit, is one of the best mixtapes I've ever heard, but it's just that stretch of like early albums, Finally Famous, Hall of Fame. I just feel like he went and filled his albums with a lot of like dance records, strip club anthems, and I just feel like lyrically too, he's never been the sharpest for a whole duration of an album. A lot of the songs haven't aged that well when you're going back to his catalog either. I don't know. I feel like it's also interesting because Big Sean's catalog doesn't even get discussed that much. I feel like
well, I mean, his mixtape era does. A lot of people are invested.
He has
into
a
that
short
run.
mixtape catalog,
but
though.
a lot
I
of
think he has
people
like 2 mixtapes.
But
maybe.
people do fuck with it. I mean, it's a kind of a similar situation with Cole, where he didn't have like a stretch of 10 mixtapes coming out before he was putting out, let's say, the Sideline Story or anything else after that. But I think what's good about Big Sean's catalog is it's gotten better over time. Like let's say from that 2015 point, it has gotten better.
You
and
also have Double or Nothing if you want to count that. I know it's a collab album, but even that was super fucking weak.
Yeah, and I don't think it's better than Logic's. It's definitely not better than Logic's catalog. Where would you go with Big Sean?
I think we could go mid.
I think we could go mid
catalog.
with Big Sean's. Okay,
Yeah.
but let's go on to Ice Cube's, because this is another super underrated catalog. Where do you want to start, bro? You want to go to like Lethal Injection? You want to go to, let's say, Predator? Like, what do you want to do?
It's amazing because, I mean, when you're looking at his career, he had an amazing solo run besides all the NWA stuff that he did. Like, he's contributed to so much, and I love how politically charged a lot of his albums are. If you're looking at America's Most Wanted, if you're looking at The Predator, I love the way that he's used his platform, to just voice all of his frustration with police brutality, institutional racism. Like, all the themes within his albums are always prominent and have aged super well. Production's been great too.
Not only that, but he's like, even what he's done for the genre as a whole, being one of the best writers within the whole genre, and like the way that he's developed his pen, like he was at the helm of so many important projects that impacted the genre, that allowed for, let's say, people like you and I to be able to come in here and enjoy different albums. Even like what he did for the West Coast was beautiful. I also think that his 2006 release with Laugh Now Cry Later and Raw Footage in 2008, super solid
records.
Solid records.
Everything's Corrupt, his most recent,
not that great, but I mean, like, you're getting
like
Ice
Cube, too comfortable.
But you're getting
there.
Ice Cube in 2018. Like, you can't even stick that to him. Like
Yeah.
at that point, he was putting it out for the fans, and I don't think it does his catalog all that much.
He has
but
3
it is
classics,
a factor.
3 classic albums,
Absolutely.
amazing catalog to me.
Amazing catalog for Ice Cube. But let's keep going on with this. I
Playboi
believe we're at
Carti,
Playboi
and this is
Carti.
interesting because when he first joined the scene, I never thought he'd be a legacy artist. I never thought he'd be an album artist. But then, as time has gone on, he kind of just surprised all of us and put out 3 projects that have become beloved by many hip-hop fans and kind of have their own cult following. I love how polarizing the albums are, how people always have split opinions, and it's been cool to see his evolution as well, the different eras of Carti, the Cash Carti era, now the more Vamp Carti stuff. It's been cool to see just the way that he's made his albums into events and moments in time.
Yeah, but like, I think that's what's such an important factor of Carti's catalog, is the exclusivity factor. Like, it feels in it, like, as you said, like an event whenever he drops. And it's interesting too, because this guy has one of the hungriest fan bases in all of music right now, and they're always down to see, how is he going to approach his sound next? What is he going to do to upgrade this? Is he going to go into a different direction as far as production goes? Who's at the helm of the production? Is Pierre Bourne making a comeback? And you could see how his catalog has affected this new generation as well, because I feel like, especially for like the younger listeners and people like you and I and people younger than us, it's one of the most talked about catalogs as a whole, just because of how polarizing it is. So that adds a bonus to me. And even like objectively speaking, like albums like Whole Lotta Red, yes, I might not enjoy it to the standard that other people do, but the influence is undeniable at this point as well.
We're still super early in his catalog, you know what I mean? So I feel like I want to go good on this, just because Whole Lotta Red isn't the strongest album in my opinion, and the first 2 are great albums, but I will have to see how the catalog ages. So we'll go good for now with Carti. Let's now go into Mac Miller. Speaking about evolutions, one of the best that we've ever seen in hip-hop history. I mean, I feel the same way about Mac Miller, the way that I do about Big L, the same way I do about Big Pun, Biggie, in the sense that it's the biggest what if. Like, we got to see Mac Miller go from frat rap to becoming a genreless and boundless album as an artist, and it comes down to an album like Circles, where he's leaning into folk music, R&B music, a bunch of different genres, and you're like, holy shit, I can't believe this is the same artist I was listening to back in 2010.
Yeah, not only that, but talk about mixtape eras. I mean, he dominated that. You want to talk about his studio album catalog, he has 10s in there, in my opinion. And even something like Super Psychedelic and Dark Like Faces is so sick, because who's putting out music like that in the genre? Who has that consistency of rapping, but also his ear for production? The fact that he's taking care of so much of his production on all of his albums is impressive as well, because there's this tight and coherent feel where Mac Miller wants to give you all of him throughout a project, and that's always prominent within every single studio album that you listen to, and
Yeah.
even mixtapes.
And
So the effort is immaculate all throughout too.
I also love how every album's kind of based around a feeling or a mood or a state
Yeah.
of mind of his. He pours out so much emotion through all his projects. Amazing catalog, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's now go into Chance the Rapper. Not much to say here. I think he gets a bad rap for having like one really bad album, which was The Big Day. But I'm a huge fan of acid rap. I think that's one of the best mixtapes of the 2010s.
Yeah, but I always think that you had this conversation with me. Why do you think Coloring Book's an overrated listen to you?
I just don't think that it's aged well, bro. Even looking at the biggest hits off of that project, like No Problem, it's just gotten annoying. The hooks kind of fall flat for me.
But what's interesting about Chance the Rapper, though, is that he has some of the most unique and like quirky, let's say, writing techniques in the game right now. And there's genuinely no one that's able to write a song like him just because of how out there it is. And I think that, yes, you could say that sometimes his music kind of becomes a bit inaccessible because he's trying out too much different shit. But that's what I appreciate about Chance the Rapper is just him being constantly unpredictable.
I miss the old Chance, the 2012, 2013 Chance where he's rapping over vintage samples, choirs.
I know, but
that soulful
yeah,
Chance
but you could
was different.
But I mean, like he also had a mega evolution as an artist as well. So I think that it's also a plus for me to see how he's always tried to step out of his comfort zones and create music around this genre and be able to bring in different.
We go
sounds.
good here.
Yeah, okay, let's cut the bullshit. Let's just
Let's
go
good.
with it.
Next up, we have Nas, and listen, it really grinds my gears when people want to fucking tell me that Nas is like a one album wonder. Like that's when you know you're not speaking to a true hip hop fan when you hear that argument, because this man has done something that's been unprecedented, and he's had one of the best 3 album runs of our time as a 48-year-old rapper.
I mean,
dropping King's Disease 2, and Magic. The guy had 2 fucking Album of the Year contenders in 2021, wins a fucking Grammy in his late 40s, and
yeah, but they had to give him to that because it was just despicable what
but
they did to that man
but the
throughout his career.
material was worthy. Maybe not for King's Disease, but definitely for King's Disease 2 or for Magic.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, even talking about Nas's discography as a whole, what's objectively speaking the only like really mid listed is Nostradamus. I mean, besides
Even
that,
that's not too bad.
Yeah, it's not
There's
even
still
that bad.
quality
But
tracks on there.
people sleep on like albums that he has like
The
midway
Lost
through.
Tapes,
Not
God's
only
Son.
God's Son is fantastic
Yeah,
as well.
man.
Like Stillmatic is ridiculous. Like there's so much good stuff that goes into Nas's catalog, and people were knocking Nazir. Why? Like what's wrong with Nazir as a project? Objectively speaking, it's super short. There's so much product that goes into, let's say, what he's rapping about, and he makes sure that everything is super nice and consist. And even at that, the sample flips on that album are fantastic.
Adam and Eve. Oh my goodness,
So-
dirty.
But I go amazing.
Ooh.
I go amazing. Do you feel the same way? Do you feel
I
the
feel,
same?
I feel it's a perfect catalog.
Do you feel like it's a perfect catalog?
I think he has-
Nostradamus is not perfect.
it's not
bro.
that bad of an album, bro? Like it's the weakest,
but it's not. It's not like. It's listen.
I
Yeah,
don't
this is a
know,
hard one.
bro. He has multiple classics. He has the best album of all time, and we're not gonna put him in perfect. He has
Yeah.
like even it was written,
Yeah,
bro.
that could be argued as
You
like
could
the
argue
best
that
album.
could be the best of all time too. I think it has to be perfect. I think it's a better catalog
Okay,
than
all right,
Jay-Z's.
all right. Yeah, convince me. Okay, that's fine. Nas
Perfect
goes
for Nas.
Yeah, Nas goes
It's
into
going to
perfect.
Nicki Minaj. 3 mixtapes, 4 studio albums. I think she does a pretty good job at making these fun pop rap albums. And listen, I respect her for her stylistic impact, but when it comes to projects, I never really gravitated towards, Pink Friday. I think the Pink Print was really good because you got to see more of her R&B and singing performances, which I would love to see more of from Nicki.
But how do you feel about Queen, especially it being
I
like
don't
one of
like
the most
Queen
recent?
too much.
It was
I think
like,
it's bloated, bro. It's 20 fucking songs.
No, listen, it is bloated, but I do think you still get really solid rap performances from Nicki all throughout her career. And like, yes, she's not dropping Illmatics, but still, there's something to be said about the
I
impact
don't think
of
she
her
has
albums.
a classic album either.
Oh, Pink Friday, like for a lot of people, I
that's-
think people.
In terms of quality,
I think-
bro. whew.
But I mean, like, I'm kind of stepping out of like my thing. Like, no, I don't think so. But I think for like what the impact has done, yes, like people would call it a classic, especially like within her fan
I don't
base.
think so.
She
Guys,
has.
let us know. Is Pink Friday a classic? I'm just curious. I don't view it as a classic. I don't think it has the unanimous feeling around it from the community that it is. But at the end of the day, I'm not invested into her catalog like that. I really don't.
So what do you want to go with?
I would go
I'd probably go mid with it.
mid.
I'd probably go mid with
it. I know
Nicki,
it's a hot take, but
yeah, a lot of people would probably flame us for that, but that doesn't matter. Let's go on to Lil Wayne, because now there's a different conversation to be had about Wayne. And we had just recorded our video on ranking the Carters, which would be coming out on Wednesday, I believe, if you're watching this on Monday. By the time this video is going to be coming out. But what's so interesting about Wayne is that, yes, you could argue that there's a bit of bloat to his catalog, but the consistency of having that quality and quantity formula is the best within I've ever seen.
Yeah,
in the genre.
the guy has some of the best album series ever. If you're looking at the Dedication mixtape series, if you're looking at the Carter series,
No Ceilings as
yes,
well.
You're getting duds though. You're getting
drop.
Rebirth. You're getting Funeral, which wasn't that great of an album. You do have your duds in there, but I mean, you're looking at someone who's put out like over 50 fucking projects, so it's bound to happen.
Absolutely. Even like going back to the early Carters and how like that was so impactful for so many people. Like you could talk about Wayne, yes, having a bit of bloat there, and like you could trim off some fat, but at the rate that he's done it at, I wouldn't change a single thing about Wayne's discography. I'd go great though.
I would go great.
I would go great.
Well.
Like you could argue that it's amazing right next to Jay-Z's. I just think that like maybe Jay-Z has higher highs in my opinion. So let's keep going on with this.
Going to Nav. He has a bad catalog. Listen, I love his self-titled. Definitely a lot of slappers on there, but as time has gone on with Good Intentions and everything else that he's really put since then, nothing, bro.
There's really nothing.
It's
even
like,
perfect.
like
but Perfect Timing.
Reckless wasn't that great.
But Perfect Timing was a nice listen. It wasn't.
cool.
It wasn't a horrible listen.
Yeah,
for sure.
it had its
like,
tracks.
It definitely didn't shape up to what like self-titled was, just because like that was like the true form of Nav. But yeah, you're right. As time had gone on, like it really started slipping off. So I would put Nav's catalog in the bad category. But let's go on to Denzel Curry, because he has so many low-key sleepers within his catalog. That's the interesting part about Denzel is like, yes, we'll have conversations about, let's say, Melt My Eyes or Taboo, Imperial, but it's what kind of like meshes those albums together for me that makes Denzel's album runs so important. And he also has iconic mixtapes too that like have helped Florida's scene flourish and sprout. So where do you want to go with Denzel?
I'm feeling it's tough, bro. He's been super consistent. I mean, even looking at what he did with Kenny Beats on Unlocked, I think it's a great catalog. I want to see how his catalog ages and also like what he has down the line.
But he's also talking about maybe going into an R&B route now as like time goes on. So like that would be an interesting take on his catalog and seeing the artistic
I think he's lacking
like
multiple classics. And I think it's just because people are sleeping on him as an artist as a whole. Like if he was on a mainstream level, I feel like
but I think that's what makes Denzel Curry's music is so good. It's just because like you kind of
it's a hidden treasure.
It's one of the best that you're getting out of this 2010 decade, but people don't necessarily like look at it on that level. Like let's say a Kendrick or a J. Cole, and maybe that's accessibility factor, but regardless, people should be in tune with Denzel Curry's catalog. So great, you said.
Great.
All right, let's go on to DMX. I think that when DMX was in that late 90s run, there was no one that was going to be able to knock him off of his consistency. Having like those two #1 albums in that same year was just groundbreaking for the genre as a whole.
Two classic albums in one year. Who's done that,
But
bro?
I was talking to my cousin Mike at a barbecue the other day, and he's a big DMX fan, and like he's watched him live so many different times, and he said at the peak of his popularity, no one was touching him. And there was some serious players within the genre at that time. Like, you had Jay-Z coming up. You had people like Eminem that were making an entrance. And still, no one was doing it like DMX was. So what are you saying about the catalog, bro? How do you feel about it?
It's a good catalog. I mean, there's always highlights. I mean, if you're talking about the storytelling cuts, if you're talking about the prayers that he implements, there's so many things about DMX's albums that make them distinctly DMX albums. I think that as time has gone on, there's certain albums that haven't been the greatest in kind of the middle of the catalog, but Exodus, which was released posthumously, that was also a breath of fresh air and a pretty good comeback album too. I'm feeling great. I'm
feeling great for DMX's catalog. But let's go on to Young Thug, because like Future, I mean, he has done so much, especially within like, I mean, you could say like really like 2013 maybe, like even though a bit later, maybe 2014 up to 2019, I think, was like maybe like an impeccable run. He really never released a bad project, and people are talking about his latest effort maybe being a step down from what he's done before. But how do you feel about that? Like,
I think he has a good catalog. I think that he has great mixtapes with Barter 6. I think Jeffrey's also a short, concise track list filled with fucking Atlanta bangers.
Even the Slime seasons are fucking fantastic.
But yeah, there's always definitely fillers within his albums. I feel like you could say that for most of them. I think it's a good catalog.
You think it's a good catalog? All right, Young Thug goes into the good category, but let's go on to Smokepurpp. I think that like a lot of people overlook like what Dead Star was, like especially back in 2017. It's a good listen, but besides that, man, like once 2017
Even
kind of
Bless Your Trap with Murda Beats.
like 1, 2, 3 was pretty
1,
good.
2, 3 was there. You also had Pockets, that was not bad. You had Big Dope on there. You had like 3 songs that I would take out of that project. So not too much for
But I would
Mr.
put
Purpp.
Smokepurpp in the bad.
I think he goes in the bad. Let's now go on to DJ Khaled, and this is very interesting because Khaled has 13 albums. He's been dropping consistently. He's, you know, I would say the matchmaker of hip hop in terms of putting all these artists
Yeah,
together.
but I'm not
in the
sure about
same
his
room.
formula recently, though.
Yeah, the formula has not really been working out the greatest. And it's interesting to know like what Khaled's contributions really are to some of these albums. Yes, he's produced some of the tracks, but
It's more of a
it's
curation.
more curation.
Yeah, curation.
You know, choosing which songs make the cut, putting artists together. I get it, but he hasn't been great at curating lately. But I will say, Major Key, bro, that was a special fucking album.
It's the best album in his catalog, hands down, bro. Like you were talking about that 5-song run at the beginning of the album. Go through that.
I mean,
real
go
quick
through
for
that
people.
run.
Yeah,
'Cause
remind people about that run.
That was a special fucking run, bro.
There's so much great stuff in there.
Yeah,
And everyone
absolutely.
was bumping that album for the summer. So
Major Key starts off with I Got the Keys, For Free with Drake, Nas album Done, Holy Key, Kendrick and Big Sean, Jermaine's interlude with J. Cole, and then you have a couple that are
yeah, then that's when
but you also have like Tourist on here.
Tourist is
Fuck
fantastic.
Up the Club.
Yeah, there's some great
There's
songs.
bangers,
There's
on,
bangers
there.
on there.
And that's kind of how I feel with Khaled's catalog, is that there's always hits and there's always bangers that you can take away from the projects, but as a whole,
no,
they're never really.
I would put
they're
them in the
always
mid
meant to
category.
feel like compilation
yeah,
albums,
absolutely.
anyways. So I mean,
I would put
I'd
him
go
in
mid.
Yeah, I'd probably go mid with it because you're still getting quality out of like certain
Yeah.
track lists with the bangers. But like, want to keep going with this? Let's
Pusha
go on to
T.
Pusha T, bro. So Pusha T's catalog is so interesting because like people say like, okay, Daytona, then what? Because I mean, there's so much stuff to go through, bro. Like, you want to fucking put his clip stuff in there? You can. Like,
Are we counting the clip stuff? I don't know if we could.
It's such an
It's
integral
like two
part of
different
though.
parts of his career, though.
But
you know
I
what
feel
mean?
like
We're
it
talking
is,
about Pusha T
but it's
here.
it's still a very integral part of his career, though. Like that's my thing with it. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, take the way with it. How do you feel about Pusha T's catalog, and do you think it's almost dry? Is within the best? Like, how do you feel about all that?
Yeah, I think that it's almost dry. My Name Is My Name. If you're looking at the Fear of God mixtape, of course, Daytona is an absolute fucking masterpiece. I just think that he's really been able to be a voice that you can't ignore, always commanding your attention on whatever project he's on, always having a great ear for beats if it's him working with Pharrell or with Kanye, and just some of the best and most creative coke rap metaphors in the way that he's been able to kind of repeat the same subject matter, always making it sound refreshing project after project. That's impressive.
But who's had a more dominant run within that coke rap lane, especially going forward?
Freddie
like,
Gibbs, you could argue.
But even Freddie Gibbs has said that like he looks up to Pusha T.
looks up to Pusha T,
yeah,
yeah.
you know, like it's kind of Pusha T has had this coke lane, you know, on lock for the past like really like 10 years, you could say at this point.
If we're just counting a solo catalog, I would go great. If we're counting the clip stuff as well, I would go amazing. That's how I'm feeling.
You know what? I want to go amazing with it just because of the clips catalog. Like it's.
But
really,
I don't know if we can count that. Is that fair?
Of course you can though, because he wasn't.
We're not counting Lil Wayne and the Hot Boys. You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah, but that's still to be like said in there. Yeah, you kind of could. I was taking that into consideration at the beginning. Like those were mega hit albums for him.
Yeah,
before,
they're not Lil Wayne albums.
Yeah,
they're Hot Boys albums. These are clips albums we're talking about. You know what I mean? It's a different entity.
That is a different entity.
In terms of his solo catalog, we go great.
You're gonna go great with it. Okay, let's go on to MF Doom.
Perfect.
I love,
I want to say it off the bat.
And I love talking about MF Doom's catalog just because there's so much to go into. Like people don't understand how much music this man's released, like especially in the underground. And it's crazy to see how he was able to also break into a North American market, you know, being from where he's from, being able to, you know, come through and deliver some of the best flows and cadences that you'll ever see from this genre. The unique style that he has with his pen also put him into a different league competitively. You're going to make an argument for MF Doom being a top 5 lyricist of all time, and that's prominent within Man Villainy, Food, Doomsday. Like, there's just so
Born
many.
Like This.
Bro,
There's
come
just
on.
too many. I mean, 6 studio albums, all amazing. I love the fact that MF Doom's kind of, you know, the ultimate legend of the underground, and he's never really made music for the mainstream. He's always attracted his audience. He never had to do anything to attract them.
But that's how good he was. So he let
exactly,
the music speak
and
for
I feel
itself.
like what I love about MF Doom too is the fact that his catalog is just so creative. If you're looking at the classic boom bap sound of Operation Doomsday, or all the food references on the concept album Food, he's always been able to be creative with his rhyme schemes, with the way he portrays characters. It's flawless, bro. Even
flawless.
his collab albums have been amazing. Perfect for MF Doom. Let's now go on to Tyga. And listen, he's never really been an album artist for me.
Singles artist for sure.
Definitely a singles artist. He's put out a lot of material though, dropping almost every year, and it's just there's not too much to take away from the catalog. I put it in bad, to be honest.
Yeah, I would put it in bad. But like even like that, like Hotel California wasn't horrible. And there's a huge controversy around that and the whole like Cash Money situation. But yeah, I would probably go bad on Tyga's. But let's go on to Earl Sweatshirt. This catalog is fucking beloved, bro. People love it. I mean,
it's a solid catalog.
It's a solid catalog,
yeah.
and it deserves a lot of credit, especially over the years. Earl's consistency has been really sick, and like he's still making fantastic projects. Like Sick was a great listen this year. What do we give it? Great or amazing on a
We
review?
gave it a great score.
Yeah, it was such a sick listen, like super concise. And Earl's always been a darker artist when it comes to his content matter and production choices. So maybe you could say that the accessibility factor isn't always there within his albums, but who gives a fuck? You know, like his monotone flow, like those types of dark, like, you know, subject matters that he's able to tap into. His production choices are fantastic too. Like there's a lot of value within his catalog. In my
And what
opinion.
I love too is how short his projects are. Like some rap songs under 30 minutes. Feet of Clay, I believe, is like 15 minutes. Sick is another very short listen. I love the fact that you can also like just go through his whole catalog and finish it pretty quickly, and the amount that he packs into every verse, super underrated as a lyricist as well. Very abstract, super MF Doom inspired, and I love that his albums always have kind of a background story to it. If it's Doris, where he was coming back from boarding school, adjusting to fame, there's so much to go through with Earl. I would say a great catalog.
Great catalog. You see, no, I don't put it onto the great level.
What?
I wouldn't. I would go a bottom tier. I would go good. I would go. Good
Where's the
with it.
weakness within his catalog?
It's not that there's a weakness within it. I just think that like what he's missing from me, and I think it's just a product of his music, is like that undeniable masterpiece. You know, like that masterpiece that like changed it. Like when we're talking about the guys that we put into the great catalog, they had those within it. Like yes, it's been super consistent and it's been super dark. There's no fat within it. It's just
You've
like
convinced me. Okay.
You know what I'm trying to say? Like he's missing that one thing. So I would put him in good, but it's not a knock towards Earl. Let's keep going on with this. Where we at? Megan Thee Stallion on the next one. Megan has been a prominent voice within the genre for a long time now. I mean, it's been probably 3 years at the moment, and she has the Tina Snow EP that did fantastic for her and her fan base. You know, that alter ego has always been so prominent within her thing. It's just I don't gravitate towards.
Not
her
a big
music
fan
like
of
that.
her studio albums, which are Good News and Traumazine, which just came out. I just feel like when it comes to Megan, she does have a great mixtape, which was Fever. I love the 3-6 Mafia influence that she has on there. But I just think there's maybe a lack of originality. Even if you're looking at Good News, I mean, she remixes Boys in the Hood from Eazy-E. She remixes Who Shot You by Biggie. And I just wish that there was maybe more creativity with the beat selection. Also, not only that, but just the subject matter. A lot of the booty talk kind of gets repetitive for me, to be honest with you, and that's kind of something that's reoccurring within her projects. And listen, it's still a very fresh and early catalog. We'll see how it develops, but right now I'm feeling mid on it, bro.
Yeah, I would go mid with it, but I definitely do think that like if she, because remember what was the snippet that you had sent me, bro, where she went ridiculous? What
I think it was for the song Plan B.
Yeah, and like bro, like she has fantastic rapping performances. It's just like, is she gonna be able to like hone in on that, or is she gonna go more mainstream
and make
with
a
her
focused project?
Exactly, but I believe she definitely can. But let's keep going on with this Brockhampton. Super underrated catalog, and just the Saturation series alone means so much to so many different people. I've loved going through those projects. Even Roadrunner was such a great listen last year. But I do think that there's certain albums that kind of throw it off for me. But what do you want to go with Brockhampton? What do you think?
Brockhampton, I would go with a good catalog. I love their themes of coming of age, struggling with identity, self-acceptance. All that's been great. The unorthodox production, Saturation series, the way they were able to kind of hold their own even after Amir left. It's been a great evolution, and it's crazy that it's all going to end this year with their final album.
Yeah, and what's so cool about their group too is that like they're such a big collective, but somehow they manage to all mesh their visions into every single project that they do. Either if it's someone executive producing the project, or let's say certain music videos. I always like how a Brockhampton album feels. But let's keep going on with this. The Game. just dropped Joematic. I'm really disappointed with it. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I mean, there's really no replay
A
value
lot of
in
people are
it.
fucking with it. I don't know how.
I don't know how, but it's okay though. People are gonna like it, and I hope they do. But the documentary in The Doctor's Advocate is like literally the peak of his career, in my opinion. Even the G Unit days. But I really do think that if it wasn't for the documentary and him having Doctor's Advocate, would we be having a conversation
Not
about
much.
the game?
I mean,
now?
documentary 2.5 is pretty good. Jesus Piece, pretty decent too.
Red Album too.
But I mean, yeah. But I just feel like lately his career's kind of been ran off of antics and kind of just chasing attention by calling people out and just the subject matter being repeated. I don't know how many fucking albums I got to hear Dr. Dre's name in. I mean, subject matter wise, it lowers the albums, but he does have classics and people don't acknowledge that. So
yeah, I mean, the documentary is arguably the best, one of the best, West Coast albums to ever come out. But I mean, it was Dr. Dre because of that. But like even at that, the game is also a high level like writer and like what he brings to the album. So I do think there is some things within it,
Yeah.
but I think it's a good catalog. I
good
don't think it's anything more
catalog.
than that.
Let's now go on to Westside Gunn. And listen, man, you could say what you want about his voice. Not everybody likes the ad libs or the eccentric inflections.
though.
It's super unique though. But what I will say is that Westside Gunn has one of the best beat selections of all time that I've heard from
for sure.
any fucking artist. The way that he taps in with The Alchemist, with fucking Madlib, with Derringer, Beat Butcher, Camo Monk, Ninth Wonder, so many to name. He just has such a great ear for beats and always ends up putting out some of the best produced
And
albums
not only
of the
that,
year.
but I think like when it comes from like a modern curation standpoint, like who's really curating albums like him in this year? And like you want to talk about consistency, this guy's been putting out a lot of great stuff, and people are willing to go spend a fuckload of money on his vinyls too, just because of how good like these productions sound and how you could use these. Like he's still carrying this traditional hip hop route that I love to see, and I do think that yes, like some like example like Hitler Wears Hermes like 8 like it wasn't like that great just because of how like long it was. Like in my opinion, people do fuck with it because it's a double-sided album, but stuff like Fly God, bro, like Pray for Paris, like those are regular listens within my listen.
I think it's a good catalog.
I think it's a good catalog for Westside Gunn. A Tribe Called Quest. Listen, last let's say rapper / group on this list for today. Perfect automatically, bro. Like when you're talking about Outkast, when you're talking about Kendrick, Kanye, A Tribe Called Quest has to be in this conversation.
You could argue that A Tribe Called Quest is the best discography in hip-hop history.
Absolutely.
If you're looking at how groundbreaking, People's Instinctive Travels and the Paths of Rhythm was, how that was really the first album to incorporate, jazz and into hip-hop, that was fucking amazing. When you're looking at the Low End Theory and Midnight Marauders, could both be argued for being the best rap album of all time. And I just love the way that Q-Tip and Phife Dawg would play off of each other. They were like fucking telepathic twins. The way they finish each other's sentences.
Yeah.
The way they can smoothly kind of go back and forth.
And how
having call
accessible
and
the music
response.
was too, because like think about how like their stuff is extremely experimental.
welcoming, bro.
But it's super welcoming. Like you could be a regular hip hop listener and still fall in love with some of the most complex and well developed material in the genre. Because obviously, as a hip hop listener, you have to go through catalogs and kind of train your ear for certain artists. But I always found the transition into a Tribe's catalog was great. Even when I was a young kid, like I wasn't going through super complex music or rap within the genre, but I always found value there because of how accessible they made it for me. So I want to go perfect with a Tribe.
Absolutely. I mean, even if you're looking at their catalog, always classic songs within their albums. If it's Can I Kick It, Check the Rhyme, Electric Relaxation. Like there's too many classics to go through, but they definitely have one of the best catalogs of all time. And guys, let us know if you agree with our choices here. A lot of hot takes in here. Let us know what you think. Subscribe if you have not already and you want to see more tier lists from us. Thank you guys for all the support that you guys show us on these videos. It means the world to us. Thank you for watching this, and we'll catch you in the next one.